All right, so today we're really diving deep into something, a question we get a lot, actually.
Mm.
Are rear-facing car seats really that much safer?
Hmm.
Like, we all know it's what we're supposed to do, right?
Right.
But, like, is it one of those things where it's like a little bit better? Or is it, like, really, really important? We've got some research to dig into.
Yeah.
And one of the big ones, this study, it really jumped out. From injury prevention, they looked at 10 years of car crash data. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's a lot.
From Kansas, 34,000 kids, ages 0 to 4.
That's a significant sample size.
It is. That's a lot of information to dig through. We've also got a couple of articles from the UK. One's about this idea of, like, are parents even getting good advice
Oh, interesting.
about car seats when they go to buy them? And then another one that's kind of scary. It's about the possibility of head injuries, specifically in rear-facing seats, but during rear-end crashes. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I mean, starting with this Kansas study, what stood out to you? What's the big takeaway for our listeners?
Yeah, you know what's so cool about that Kansas study is it's real-world data.
Okay.
It's not, like in a lab, it's not a simulation.
Oh, wow.
These are actual crashes that happen. And they looked at, okay, what kind of car seat did these kids have and what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And they found that the kids in rear-facing seats had a statistically significant reduction in the risk of injury, any injury, compared to forward-facing.
Okay. Now, when we say statistically significant, what does that actually mean, like, in car seat world?
So that means, like, it wasn't just like a random chance.
Right.
It means it really truly makes a difference what kind of car seat.
Yeah.
They found a 9% lower risk of any injury for the rear-facing kids.
See, now, I got to admit, I didn't realize it was actually statistically significant. I thought maybe it was like,
Yeah, a lot of people think
like, oh, it's probably a good idea. But
right.
but 9%, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Think about it this way. That's a 9% greater chance that your kid's walking away from an accident, like unharmed.
Wow. Okay. That puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
And we're talking about any injury. So this is like
Anything.
across the board, bumps, bruises, to the really serious stuff.
Exactly.
Was there a particular type of crash where rear-facing showed the most benefit?
Yeah, so they looked at, like you said, a bunch of different crashes, and it seemed like the biggest difference was in, like, head-on collisions,
Oh, interesting.
which, when you think about it, makes sense.
Yeah.
Because rear-facing seats, they're designed to, like, cradle the child, their head, their neck, their
Yeah.
spine, all those really delicate parts. And in a head-on crash, all that force is going backwards, so the car seat's kind of absorbing it.
So even if, like, I think a lot of us like to think we're really safe drivers.
Sure. Yeah.
We can't control the other maniacs on the road. So
Exactly.
head-on protection, that's a big deal.
It is.
Did this study look at those, like, the really bad ones too? The worst case scenario crashes?
They did, but thankfully there just weren't that many of those, like, really, really severe injuries in the data, you know?
Oh, that's good.
To be able to really draw a strong conclusion about those
Right.
doesn't mean that rear-facing's not good in those situations, just means we need more data.
Okay, so it's not that they're ineffective, it's just we don't know for sure yet.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, you mentioned these UK articles, and one of them, it was kind of about whether parents are even getting good advice
Yeah, right?
about car seat safety. Like, are we being steered wrong, so to speak? Ha ha.
Right. Pun intended, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. But they had this survey, and almost half the parents thought it was okay to turn their kid forward-facing at 9 months old.
Yeah, I know. It's like, whoa.
Which, I'll admit, even I had to, like, double-check
Right.
when I saw that.
It's shocking how common that is.
It is, and it just makes you realize how important it is to, like, really go to the good sources, right?
Absolutely.
Like, don't just trust, like, the guy at the store necessarily.
Well, exactly.
Do your research. And that kind of leads into this other article, actually.
Okay. It actually found that a lot of the retailers, they're not consistently asking parents these, like, key safety questions
Really?
when they're buying the seat.
Oh, wow.
So it's like they're not getting that guidance.
It's like buying, I don't know, like a parachute, and they're like, here you go.
Right. And you're like, wait, how
Do I just jump out the plane with this? Yeah, exactly.
But there's a little more to it, and it's,
Right.
it could be really dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so they were even talking about, like, a movement to create a formal accreditation
Oh, yeah.
for car seat advice. Like,
So that when you go into a store.
Right. That the person actually knows.
Right. They've been trained.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like we were saying, it's one thing to like buy the right seat, but if you don't know how to use it,
Right.
it's not doing any good.
Right. It's got to be installed, right? It's got to be
Exactly.
all of that matters.
Speaking of using it right, this last article, this is the one I'm a little terrified to even talk about it, but the head injuries in rear facing
Okay. Yeah.
during rear end crashes. So what did they find? How worried should I be?
So basically they took crash test dummies
Okay.
and they put them in rear facing seats, simulated rear end crashes,
Mm-hmm.
and they measured how far back their little dummy heads went,
Okay.
right? And then they compared that to like the roof heights
Oh, okay.
of different vehicles.
So like, is there enough clearance?
Exactly. Is the kid gonna like hit their head? And good news,
Okay.
in most vehicles, there's plenty of room.
Okay, good.
Like it's a very low risk
That's reassuring.
of the head actually hitting the roof. Okay, most vehicles, you said. Are there any like exceptions? Like, should I be worried about my Subaru Outback or anything?
You know, the ones that they mentioned were like pickup trucks
Oh, okay, yeah.
because they tend to have like a lower roof line.
Right, in the back spots.
Exactly. So if you've got a pickup truck, maybe just double check, like
Be extra careful, yeah.
make sure there's enough space.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much to think about.
I know, it's overwhelming.
It is. Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've got this Kansas study, super interesting real-world data, rear-facing, it's looking good. We've got this issue of, are we even getting good advice? Make sure you're going to those reliable sources. And then this head injury thing,
Yeah.
which thankfully,
Not as bad as you might think.
not as bad as I thought. Not as bad as I thought, but, still something to be aware of. If our listener is, like, trying to make sense of all this, what's, like, the big takeaway?
The takeaway is the evidence is really pointing towards rear facing being safer for those little ones. And, of course, more research is always happening.
Right.
But that Kansas study, that's pretty powerful with real world crashes.
It is.
And, always check your manual,
Oh, yeah. Good
your
point.
car seat manual, your vehicle manual, because it does vary a little bit. And if you're really unsure, find a car seat technician.
Yes. Those exist.
They do. They can help you.
They will check it out, make sure you're doing it right.
Yes.
Okay. It makes you wonder, like, what other things are we, like, doing
Right.
with kids,
Yeah.
that we think we've got it all figured out, but
Maybe there's a better way.
right, there's a better way.
Right.
Okay, well, on that note, right, like, maybe we'll find out in a few years that, like, I don't know, baby shoes, they're doing more harm than good or something.
Right. Who knows?
Who knows? Technology changes, the research changes. It's good to stay on top of it. But anyway, I digress. So we've got to choose the right seat. We got to install it correctly. But then there's that whole other thing, right? Actually getting the kid into the darn thing.
Right. And keeping them happy.
Because, some kids, they do not want to be rear-facing. They want to see the world.
They want to be like everybody else.
They do. They want to see out the front. So do you have any tips for those parents who are, like, struggling with that?
It can be tough,
They get
but I think distraction is key.
distraction. Yeah.
Like have special car toys.
Oh, yes. The car toys that they only get in the car.
Exactly.
Like the good one.
And even like adjusting the mirror so they can actually see you.
Oh, that's a good point.
It makes them feel a little more secure.
Yeah, like they're not just like stuck back
Right.
facing the back of a seat. Yeah.
And then, you can still like chat with them,
Yeah.
play some car games.
Oh, yeah. I Spy. That's always a classic.
Exactly. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, they get so distracted they forget they're even, in a car seat at all.
Exactly.
Well, this has been really interesting. I feel like, even for me, I'm like learning new things. I'm like rethinking some things.
Mm-hmm. It's good to revisit this stuff
It is.
because it does change.
Yeah, it does.
And guidelines get updated.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who are maybe, expecting their first little one, or maybe they've got a couple of kids and they're like, wait, what was that rule again? What's the like final thought?
I think the final thought is trust the experts.
Okay.
Like, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they base their car seat guidelines on all the latest research.
Right.
So, check those out. They keep those updated. They're a great resource.
They are. And you know what? Don't be afraid to like ask for help.
Yes.
Like if you're not sure if you installed it right,
Please.
go to the fire station. Go.
They're happy to help.
They are.
They want to make sure your kid's safe.
Exactly.
That's what they're there for.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive into car seat safety. Thank you to everyone for listening.
Phew.
Safe travels, and we'll see you next time.
Learn more at mommyhood101.com.